Hi, everybody.
Hello.
So we are currently live. So first thing is first. We have Justin Morales, Ed, and Rob Haan here. Um, what we're going to be going through is going to be going through all the recent events at the DLCs, starting with Richmond, and then over to the China event, as well as the Tokyo one as well. So Rob, would you like to take it from there?
Yeah, sounds good. I think we had a very strong finish in Richmond. Um, Three of us made it to top cuts, with myself and DKP managing to get a golden Mickey, which was, of course, extremely exciting. Well, we had Milwaukee recently, and I did my usual travel routine there, flying in on Thursday, and of course we had the Enchanted dinner there, so it was quite tiring, and I had a pretty bad day on Friday, and that kind of seeped through into my Saturday and my play there. So I was a little grumpy about that, so I was considering it for a while and decided to go a day early. So I landed on Wednesday evening, had a very chill time, had a pretty medium day on Thursday and a pretty bad one on Friday. But then the plan worked out, so because I was feeling pretty good on Saturday, I didn't really get phased by the jet lag at all. I think that was really worth it. So that is something to keep in mind for all players that are actually like traveling to tournaments. Try to find a rhythm that suits you. I know guys like Thiago are a lot younger and they can just fly everywhere. But as soon as you hit a certain age, that's slightly more difficult, I believe.
How old are you, if you don't mind me asking?
Sorry, what was that?
How old are you, if you don't mind me asking?
No, that's fine. I'm 38.
38? Oh, okay, not bad, not bad. You're still a young guy, bro. Don't worry.
Yeah, yeah. It's not as young as I used to be though. Like I started flying to like TCG tournaments at like maybe 17, and I was most active at my 23rd. I could literally just fly in on the morning of the tournament and just do well. That's not happening these days, brother.
Morning off, man. That's
Agreed.
crazy.
Yeah, I did that once, never again.
Actually, like when I was 17, I qualified for my first MTG Pro Tour in San Diego, I believe. And I got offered to fly to the GP in Portland a week before, but there were some delays and I didn't have much time to take off the uni. So I landed like somewhere in the middle of the night. I did super well. I was like 6-0, and then I had a feature match around 7. I was up by 1 game, and then I literally fell asleep on camera.
Do be like that.
Yeah, like I do believe like most experienced players like us, we're just really used to like the rhythm of playing for like 12 hours sleep, 12 more hours. But I kind of feel like if you travel across continents, that edge kind of fades away because your jet lag gets in the way of that. I think I've been all over the place deck-wise. Like one of my comfort zones for the current formats was, of course, blue-green, as I was doing in Bologna and Milwaukee. But on the other hand, like I've always liked all the consistency of the purple decks, so I was really trying those as well. I think like 2 weeks before the tournament, I was of the opinion that purple steel was the most consistent and like the best deck in the formats. But I've never really taken a shine to that kind of deck. So I basically decided pretty early on that I would probably just stick to either purple being super consistent, or blue-green being like my comfort zone. And well, I'm getting a lot of upgrades in this set. Um, I don't know. I think somewhere like a week and a half before the event, like with DKP releasing the guide, me getting a bunch of positive results in testing with Blurple, I just logged in early and decided to just jam a bunch of extra games to get the reps under me, and that turned out pretty well. And I think the testing uh, in Richmond with the team in the team or in the hotel lobby went pretty well as well. I think I decided that it was good enough. And I do also believe that our assessment of the meta game there was pretty favorable for purple with such a low number of dogs and such a high expectancy of purple decks. I was really confident going into the mirror as well. So it's like we estimated like 60% of the metagame to be playing some kind of purple deck. So I guess that's a really good place to be. The days leading up to the event, it was really a coin flip, to be honest. On the one hand, I was like, should I just follow DKP? I mean, he's more experienced with the deck than I am, and well, of course, you can't really go wrong following the world champion. But during testing, I felt like we were too concerned with the dogs deck out there. Like I think we estimated it to be like between 10 to 12% or something. And I kind of really just didn't want to spend 2 slots on that deck just to have to top deck it at the right time. I don't know. It just felt like that wasn't going to really change the matchup at all. Unless you manage to super top deck it at the right time, then you just won the matchup, I guess. Fortunately, I only met the dog matchup once during the entire tournament. So I wasn't a big fan. I think I changed, like I went to bed on Friday and in the morning I just got up and was like, no, I'm not playing that card. I guess if my matchups were different, I might have reconsidered my decision and maybe have felt some regrets. But well, it turned out really good and it felt really well. So I'm happy I swapped them out. And to Vader, Inkrun and permanent slot in purple. Yeah, I don't know. It felt good. But it's very easily to replace, I guess. Like it's just like a luxury draw. If you need slots for something else, you can swap that one out. Anyone else have any questions on the Richmond event for my side?
How exactly did Ink underperform during your performance in Richmond?
I think the most notable performance for that card was in my top 8 match against the green purple aggro deck. I think we were kind of joking after game 1 that the Pegasus was really good against me because it's best for 3 for just like easily, and then probably for 1 or 2 more if you manage to keep it on the board. I mean, my evasives don't really start until turn 3 or something. But I opened on the play in game 3, 1-drop pass. Then I sailed into another 1-drop, and then on turn 3 I played Ink Runner, kill your Pegasus, play another 1-drop. That was invaluable, and I think that just won me the game right on the spot there. And at some other points, I think I just flat out banished an Elsa with challenging my Demona and just dictating whatever he could quest with. But I didn't think it was that great. It just felt like a solid card, and because it replaces itself, that's kind of worth it. I think one of the main reasons it was not as good as we had hoped is because we're playing for Iago, so I guess we're already kind of crushing the evasive wars. Well, I'll start with my top 32 match. I was 1-2 against Green Blue during the entire weekend. So I was feeling a little down on that matchup. I've been notoriously bad in the single elimination matches in Lorcana. I think I've topped a few events, but one single top cut match. So that's not very impressive. I was down the first game against Green Blue, so I was feeling quite demotivated. But then I was like, yeah, I qualified. I'm already happy. That's fine. But I somehow managed to win game 2 and 3, which brought me to the top 16 with one of my most exciting Lorcana matches ever, because I was playing for a Golden Mickey. I was playing against, I believe, Scott Markerson on green purple mid range. I actually believe I saw him taking you out on stream a few rounds earlier. Did I get that right?
We don't talk about that one.
Yeah, well, to be honest, like it was good for me to witness this. Like, I saw some of the angles from his deck, and I had already given it some thought at least, so that was good. But it was for sure 3 very tense games. Game 1, I was on the draw, of course. And I think me ramping into Demona really swung the game around. And I think somewhere around turn 6 to like 9 or 10, I think I cast like 4 Demonas. So he was never able to keep a singer on board to try to combo me out. So I kind of had some time off until he actually hit 12 ink where he comboed me. So, but everything in between, I was just able to keep my hands stocked, put the pressure on the board, get a very high lore total. So I managed to get that one. Then game 2, he was on the play again. He had a much better curve and was able to disrupt me a lot more. I think I had a bunch of uninkable genies and I got like Mother Knows Bested a couple times. So he really tempoed me out there. I got a couple of very big card draws of Clarabelle, and I think he comboed me like twice or 3 times even afterwards. So that was not really a game on my side. And then going into game 3, I was finally on the play. So my genies got a lot better, and once again, the Mona really took the spotlight there, and I think just won me the game. It was a really long match. I believe we almost hit the 70-minute mark, but I pulled through, and I got my Mickey.
Congratulations for that. That's such a wonderful, wonderful run you did there.
Yeah, it was very exciting. Like I was a little inspired by DKP last year, and I posted like some goals for this year, like he did. And just like in one tournament, I was able to tick off like 2 of my goals, like get qualified for NA Continentals and get a golden Mickey. And I even got very close to qualifying for Worlds on this one. So that was it's very exciting run.
And it's true that you are both qualified for NA and EU Continentals now?
I'm definitely qualified for both. I've been a little hesitant on boasting that too much on social media because I'm not 100% confident, but I'm the only one that I've seen qualify for both. Like I haven't really seen anyone else make the claim on social media. But yeah, you do know how the internet gets. If I make the boast and I'm wrong, I'll get burned down again.
Well, it is definitely quite an accomplishment.
Thank you, sir. I've actually
All
already
right.
taken like a full month off of work in August just to get prepped and go to both events.
And which events will you be competing in the future?
I'm for sure going to Ghent and Dortmund. Um, and the rest is up for grabs right now. To be honest, I had a very, very busy year planned. But getting the Mickey and the qualification so soon kind of made me rethink some events, um, and has also made me want to get more time off in August, September to actually prepare and play the Continentals. Um, the other ones I'm very much considering are mostly Indianapolis, the Brazil one, and well, there's a like miniature chance of me going to Melbourne still. The event was really nice last time.
All right, Rob, thank you for that. Is there anyone else in the team chat that would like to chime in and talk about their experience, possibly about Richmond or um, any of the other events this past couple of weeks?
Yeah. I mean, for Richmond, I played blue green. I played that deck a lot. I ended up going 9-3, went 7-1 the first day. My 2 losses, I think, were to like the purple steel, like aggro deck, like with the Timothy Q mouse and the Tinkerbell. I think it made sense. I kind of lost to those decks, I think, in day 2, just because I think all the ones that didn't have that kind of strategy and played like a more normal mid-range purple steel deck probably got eliminated in the first day, just because like it just didn't line up well against all the sapphire decks. And I think all the, like amethyst steel decks that were performing well were having some kind of either anti-sapphire strategy with like, Timothy Q mouse and Tinkerbell, or like the Benjas for like the dogs. So I kind of walked around just to take a look, and yeah, like somebody was doing some kind of tech if you were to make it to day 2. But yeah.
Was there any changes that you would make to your deck list that you would otherwise like be happy with? Or like, are you happy
Yeah.
with the current stock list that you're running?
Yeah, I mean, I saw like the winning list ended up eventually like cutting to Hades. A lot of people were off Hades. Everyone's on like Mother Knows Best and Bend to My Will. And I think earlier iterations of my deck had John Silver, and I think that was definitely the right meta call. I think if I had the John Silver, like Sydney into John Silver game plan, it would be significantly better into the Timothy Q Tinkerbell meta, which I kind of didn't expect. So, I mean, moving forward, it probably makes more sense to play those type of cards, but if more mirrors show up, then I think definitely the Mother Knows Best and the Bend are like necessary cards in the deck. I think for me, I would probably run at least two Mother Knows Best and two Bend to My Will because of how prevalent uh like that the mirror is going to be, and it's also very good into Blurple, right? And if we do lose Hades, then I think that's like the next best thing, right? Like the best combo in the deck is you Mother Knows Best like straight into a Bend. So I think moving forward, I'd probably end up cutting the Clarabelle and the Hades for some like Mother Knows Best John Silver Bend to My Will. Just because I guess right now the aggro part of the meta has kind of slowed down a little bit. Even though like a lot of people were playing like the Timothy Q stuff, I think dogs in particular kind of took a big hit. Like they kind of underperformed, and I think that will probably reflect in the future of this meta.
So I do have Fungus's list up at the moment, and one thing to notice is how low the uninkability is in this list. You have
Yeah, I
four
think he's like
Cinderella,
yeah.
one
Hmm.
Bend, two Mother Knows Best.
Yeah. I mean, I think everyone was pretty close to this. Like, I guess I was like for Cindy, for Hades. And I think the main thing is that like a lot of the time you want to be able to like dump as many cards as you can from your hand to get like max value from Clarabelle, right? And I think the main problem with Hades was like actually there was like a non-zero amount of times where it just kind of gets stuck in your hand. And if you really think about it, Mother Knows Best is like a song, right? You can basically dump it whenever you want to. So in that sense, that card is kind of free. So the only real like kind of hard uninkable is the Bent to My Will. So you can basically like ink your whole deck. Because if you have multiple Cindy's, you usually want to play them, or worst case, use Cindy to ink Cindy. So yeah, basically we're at a point where like the whole deck is basically inkable.
Now, Patrick, I don't know if you are currently available to be able to talk about your
Yeah,
experience.
yeah, sure. Well, my experience was a little bit shorter for the main event, unfortunately. I went with Blurple with Wasabi, and they were actually useful in multiple matchups, but I chose Blurple because I expected a lot of Purple Seal, and in fact, it was the most popular deck, but I didn't find any Purple Seal that day. I basically found like mirrors when I was always on the draw, which is quite hard. Like I played the Yago on turn 3 each game, but they had the hypnotic deduction, hypnotic strength, so kind of hard to go back from there. And then my last game that I lost that kicked me out of the tournament was actually against Green Purple Burn on the draw. It's already a very bad matchup, but being on the draw really doesn't help. But on game three, the Wasabi was able to like banish the early Amethyst Chromicon to deny the draw, and then later on banish the Incaster that was doing lore anyway. So the one lore from Wasabi didn't make a difference there. But then I was lethal on board, and they did top deck the White Rose. They only had Go-Go in hand, and I did play around that Go-Go, but the top deck White Rose got the game, so that was very unfortunate. But it's a bad matchup on the draw, so not much I can do. But I still think the Wasabi was helpful because in other games I also banished Ink Runner, and this card is very annoying in the mirror. So I was playing against someone with the Forecast Demona, and that thing is very scary with the Ink Runner on the board. So just being able to banish the Ink Runner and then start questing and using the Dumbo trigger was a key moment for another Blurple mirror I did win on the draw. So yeah, a short run with those mirror on the draw and the green purple burn, and also I get a loss against the monstro combo. That was very intense because again I had the lethal on board, but the monstro combo did come out from the top deck, so it is what it is. And I did let the opponent go through the entire motion. He showed me the card, but like we had 25 minutes left in the rounds. I'm like, okay, just go through it in case he mess up something and I still get the win, or he doesn't have everything he needs. So yeah, I went through the entire motion to, and I was slowing a slow death, like we say. You see the entire deck going down, like okay, I'm dead. But it's fun to see it in action. I think it's the first time I'm seeing it in action. So yeah, it's a bit more of a rogue deck, but sometimes it works. So that was also in game three. So yeah, the run was short, but I'm still happy with the list I've provided. At the end of the day, when we started to go to the tournament, I did chat with the DKP, and we ended up with only one card difference. I was running one more cat, and he was running one more Yago, and that's it. So very similar list. So I was feeling confident, but the matchup and the coin toss were the dice roll were not in my favors.
were there any changes you would have made to that list, or were you fairly confident you'd run that same list back again?
Yeah, well, the fact that I lose on the draw against purple was really annoying, even though I did have the Yago each game. So I might consider playing beefy character on 4 that are not evasive and maybe playing one more ink runner so we have something that's more safe. Because if you go with, for example, a Demola on turn 3, they cannot just hypnotic strength, and if on turn 5 you put the ink runner and you attack with her, like you're already getting some value that cannot be prevented, because otherwise the Genie Elsa War is super hard on the draw. So I think that's a good advice for any deck. Really, you need to be able to win on the draw because you won't get all those dice roll. If you do, then you're very lucky, but usually you won't. So if you cannot win on the draw in the mirror, I think that's problematic. But at the same time, it's usually 50-50. They either have the card or they don't, and the game goes from there on turn 3. So yeah, I think having more options on turn 4 than Yago would be good. A more option that survives a Genius attack, that'd be good. Other than that, I'm not sure about the mirror, but then with the new cards coming soon, there's gonna be a lot of stuff to try out. So we'll see where I end up with this.
I actually do think the Blurple is a very good deck to be on the draw with, though. Of course, you'd rather be on the play, but
Yeah,
it does
and
have a
that's why
very
I picked
solid
your
game plan on the draw.
yeah,
I was
that's
actually
why I
on the
picked
draw
your
like
deck, obviously, right? Like having a way to ramp makes the fact being of the draw like less of a problem because you ramp and you're now on like a even ground or even you're first. But when it's a blurp on mirror on the draw, then you're always behind unless they miss the ramp. But it could be both ways. So. Yeah, I like Blurple because of that. I feel like it's a good deck on the draw, but in the mirror, it's still Play-Doh dependent. And maybe one other advice I can give to our viewers is like to be careful with stats. Like for myself, I did grind a lot of the online website with red purple at first, and then I started to try some other stuff like yellow purple. I was close to bring yellow purple to tournament, to be honest. And then I did play a lot of blurple at the airport because I had like a 8 hours layover. And when I look at all my stats, because I keep them all in a Google sheet that's much more precise with notes and everything that what Lorcanido provides, I could see that my best win rate deck was actually red purple. But you always need to be careful about the bias because the reality is that my red purple deck was used in the early grinding when I was playing against like weaker opponents, so it kind of buffed the stat a lot. So it's important to like have filter on like if I play against someone that's below a certain elo threshold, MMR threshold, then you don't count them because otherwise you can have some over buff stat that are not representative of the strength of the deck or anything like that. So yeah, need to be careful because otherwise I would have been playing red purple and I don't think I would have got a better run with red purple.
All right, moving on. The weekend after Richmond, there was an event in Suzhou, China. Um, we did have competitors go down there. I believe Ed, you went, correct?
Yep. It was me, Jonathan Lamb, DKP, Tiago. We all went. I played, or me, DKP, and Jonathan Lamb played red blue. I think my list was like 3 cards different. I decided to run 4 Sisu because I think in the China meta there's a lot more aggressive strategies. So I wanted to make sure I had like the wipe for that. I think Jonathan Lamb and DKP wanted to tech a little bit more towards red blue, so they went for the half and half, 2 Hades and 2 Sisu. They also cut one of the super goose. Like I ran 4 super goose. They decided to run 3 super goose and a Maui's fishhook. I think that card is also quite strong against the mirror because you can take out sharks and make duck manners. And there was also a non-zero amount of Diablo players. And I guess with the new Dumbo in the meta, they also wanted to have an answer to that. So I think that was a pretty good meta call as well. But I didn't really want to run like the one tech card just for that matchup. So I just decided to go with the consistent super goof. And I think one kind of interesting but also bad thing that happened was after 5 rounds, there was 8 undefeated players. It was me, DKP, 6 other guys. And I think earlier in the tournament, we asked them like how play draw was gonna work. And they assured us that it was gonna be die roll. So we were like, okay, if we go 5-0-3, that's basically guaranteed in. So we all decided to draw. And then apparently during that round, they made an announcement in Chinese that it was actually going to be play draw. So it's actually seeding based. and like me and DKP were just like, dude, what is even happening? So I mean, for me, I decided like, if I wanted to go this way from the get, I have to stick it out. So I ended up drawing the next 2 rounds, and I was like 23rd seed or something. So it was gonna be pretty tough. I was gonna be on the draw. DKP decided to play, and he lost one, won one. So I think he ended up being 6th seed. So he was at least able to go first for the first round. Um, for me, I ended up facing two more green. I faced two green purples um, in top cut. The first guy I was able to beat 2-0, but the second guy, I think he was like a lot better player. He played Ursula, saw my hand, and saw that I had two Sisus, so he decided to go with the spam goat plan, and that was like one of the things that basically like did you in when you're playing red blue, and you didn't have access to like the Pirate's Life Shark combo. So I think that's how I lost. I think DKP. I'm not sure how. I mean, everyone else lost in top. I mean, yeah, we all ended up top 16. We all got our invites. Um, but I'm not really sure how everybody else like lost their match. I guess we saw Tiago on stream. He was playing purple steel, like his signature deck, and on stream he played against amber steel, and he was looking really good in the first game. He went first, and he just had the opener. In the second game, I think his opponent just got pretty lucky. Um, like I'm sure everybody remembers, your opponent has no cards in hand, but they have a singer on board, and they've ripped the aerial into a whole new world, and then, they just get all their resources back. And I think it's that kind of play that makes a huge difference between like Infinity and Core Constructed. Like in Core Constructed, I don't think there's anything like that insane. Like sure, you can top deck like a dock into like a Pete into a dock or something like that, but that's like quite uncommon. But in Infinity, you can basically rip it and like draw 7 new cards and just, take the game over from there. And I think game 3 was pretty unfortunate for Tiago as well. Like his opponent kept 3 on the draw, or kept 7 on the draw, and he was able to play like shift Robin Hood. And historically speaking, for Amethyst Steel, shift Robin Hood is quite difficult to deal with, just because it has so much willpower, right? And I think Tiago was quite unlucky. He drew like 3 strengths and to fire the cannons. Couldn't really ink anything. And then his opponent was able to play Pete and then wheel him. And I think he just straight up lost the game after that. So, I mean, I think he didn't do anything wrong. It's just kind of the nature of the format. And like, I realize a lot of the Chinese players like to play these type of like high roll strategies because, that you need like that type of advantage to like, go deep and get lucky and win tournaments. So yeah, that's kind of like where we ended up for Suzhou.
And speaking on that, because it was a best of 2 format, do you think having that high roll deck building like mentality is more beneficial in best of 2?
Oh no, this was actually best of 3 format.
Oh,
So I
really?
think they tried to copy, like the Western format. And I think that's probably why they also changed it to play draw. Because actually, eventually, we went up to the judge station and was like, dude, what is happening? They're like, oh yeah, we're trying to copy the West. So if they're doing play draw, then we're also doing play draw. So I guess like kind of, it was just kind of poorly managed in my opinion, but I think they're just trying their best to try to, copy the West. So I think for them, they've also been through all the formats, I think. Because in Beijing, it was 2-game format, right? And then here it was best of 3. And I think at some point, some of their GPs or whatever were like 1-game format. I think for best of 3, though, like you said, I think there is some upside in trying to play high roll just because out of 3 games, you're probably going to high roll at least like 1 time, right? You're going to see the combination that you um, want. And I think something else about best of 3, I don't remember who did the math, but basically in 3 games, even if you run like a single copy of a card, there's like a very high chance of you seeing that particular card in best of 3. So I think I think it does make sense to run like a lot of 1-ups if you're playing best of 3, like what we call silver bullets. Like if there's like one particular card that's really good against a matchup, like let's say in Richmond, right? A lot of people are running Benja and Wasabi, for example. and those were just like silver bullets, right? Sometimes you draw it against like Chromacron, or like a lot of people were playing like yellow purple with Lantern. If you're able to like pop a Lantern or Chromacron, you basically win the game. And if that one card can swing one game out of those 3 games, like if you're on the draw or like your opponent opens like slightly unfavorable, that'll really kind of swing that match into your favor. So I think in best three, it makes more sense to kind of run silver bullets. I know in Hong Kong, I guess we'll talk about this later, but Hong Kong is a 1 game format, right? Best of one. So I think in that kind of format, it makes more sense to play a more linear strategy. And just because it's blind, you need to have a game plan going in, right? Like if I win the die roll, what cards am I gonna play? I'm not gonna know what my opponent is playing, right? So you better have a good like go first strategy. And if you're going second, you also need like a decent reactive strategy, right? Like as soon as your opponent inks 1 card, you need to be able to be like, okay, here's my game plan against that strategy. But it's also kind of tough just because you also have to keep certain cards in your mulligan, right? So I would say even if you're going second, you still need to have a good game plan without knowing what your opponent is doing.
Very well said. So I don't think we have anybody here that was actually at the Tokyo event that was in Japan that Sunday. That was, I believe, best of one. I do have the deck list, the winning deck list here. If you guys would like to review and comment on that, please.
Well, this looks like a very standard-ish blue-red ramp deck to me, with a couple of spicy one-offs in there. I think they just got the right matchups and probably won a bunch of die rolls, to be honest, as you do in best of one. What stands out the most to me is the poisonous apple. I think that's a pretty spicy one. But I don't think there's any card in here that you would completely not expect from this archetype. So I like the list. Probably played really well. Got a little lucky, as you need to get. It looks good otherwise. From our team, I think only Daniela went there, right? Or did anyone else go?
Yeah, I think it's just Daniele.
Yeah, I think it was just Daniela.
I think he ended up playing green purple, which is also kind of a reasonable deck. I think if I was able to get all the cards, I'd probably also play green purple. I think the upside of green purple is that it has game into all the decks. Like if you're playing against red blue, you can go the discard strategy to win. If you go against aggro, you can play like the tempo game to win. And against like some of these rogue decks like Emerald Steel, you also just have the better evasive, so you also win there. So I think it makes sense to play that deck. But the problem is because you have like a half and half strategy, sometimes you draw the wrong half and you just straight up lose the game, right? Like if you draw the tempo cards versus red blue, you lose. If you draw the discard plan against the aggro, you lose. So you also have to get kind of lucky drawing the right half. But I think the main upside of that deck is you do have access to all those cards. And if you see them in the right sequence, you can kind of just take over the game.
Yeah, I think you're right in describing how the green-purple deck works. And to me, that feels really unappealing in a best of one tournament. Like if in a best of three tournaments, like one of the games, the deck just shits on you a little bit and you get the wrong half of it, you can still compensate in the other 2 games. But in best of one, that's so much more punishing, it feels like to me. I'd get very frustrated.
All right. So the next loser event, I believe, is the Hong Kong event. Is that correct?
Yeah, Hong Kong is next Sunday. Or not
Mhm.
this following Sunday, but the one after, yeah.
That's February 1st, something like that.
Yep.
Yeah.
Who on the team is going? Who's excited? How are you guys preparing?
I think Justin's going, right? You can talk.
I'm yeah, I'm going. So I've tested a lot of decks, and I mean, people know that I play blue steel. So my usual test is like, is there a deck that's so good that I cannot pass on playing that deck over blue steel? And the thing is, I've tried like a lot of decks. I've tried purple and a bunch of stuff, but I find myself like circling back to to BS. I don't know.
I mean, the thing about Hong Kong is like it's basically Richmond Fallout format. I mean, it's not like a lot. Like I'm not really sure how many Americans or like Western players are going, but like they've obviously seen the fallout of Richmond, right? Like blue green was like the major deck of the format, and your deck better have like some game plan against blue green. So I think for me, like I I'm most familiar with blue green, so I'm probably gonna play either blue green or some kind of blue green adjacent deck. Um, I think like Rob said, like Scott Markison's deck is also pretty interesting. I think what I like about it is that like when you're on the draw, you actually have a decent game plan against the aggro strategies. Um, I think every time I lost was basically when I was on the draw and my opponent just opened like either like Timothy into Tinkerbell, or like against red purple. Sometimes you also just lose to like Diablo Sisu. Like these two questers are just really strong, right? And the upside of playing the Amethyst cards are you get to play the best challengers in the game. You can play Rafiki, you can play Iago, and Cheshire Cat is basically like the best anti-aggro card that kind of exists in the game right now. And Genie also, right? Those also kind of lock down your opponent. So I think Scott Markison's kind of idea of, I have a good game plan on the draw, and then you also just have the nut line with like Clarabelle, you're welcome on the play it's pretty solid, right? So I think that deck is also fairly appealing to me. So I'm gonna probably play one of those decks. But I think some of the contingent is also in best of one. You just try to win your die rolls, right? And just play like these kind of unbeatable on the play decks, like Dogs or Amber Steel, stuff like that. So I think now the meta is a little bit better just because we do have like some of these anti-aggro options if you want to play them, like what I said earlier with like the Rafiki Iago Cheshire Cat thing. And you also have like this Prince Philip high roll on the draw, where you can just like shift on turn 4, turn 5, and kind of just take the game over from there. So I think most people probably are still going to be on like similar decks to Richmond. It's just a matter of probably not over, but like teching a little bit more towards green blue and a little bit less towards like Dogs. Because I know a lot of people like ended up playing stuff like Benja and Wasabi to try to counter Chromacron. But I think those cards will probably be a lot less popular now that blue green is kind of, the reigning champ. So I think that's probably where it's going to shake up. And I think one kind of big thing that we took away from Richmond is that Purple Steel or Amethyst Steel was basically the most popular deck, but it was the most underperforming deck. Like, I don't think, I was like, what, 27, 28%, and it only converted like, you know, sub 20%, right, into the top cut. So I think a lot less people are probably going to play Amethyst Steel because it kind of falls to um, green blue. But if they were to run it, they would probably just run a more aggressive version of the deck.
Yeah, I agree. Like, I think generally in Asia, like a lot of people default to like what the best performing deck happened, and with Richmond being one with like finals of GB versus GB, a lot of people could probably swap. Though also suspect like still a lot of people are gonna end up playing purple because purple cards are very good, and well, card accessibility is quite different in Asia, like especially in Southeast Asia. Like they don't have, I mean, they don't have the same like platform as we have here in Europe. So like if people bought into like the purple decks, a lot of people would probably play some variant of it, but yeah, maybe they'd skew more aggressively because of well, the sapphire decks becoming more popular. So yeah, I agree with that.
Yeah, I think we kind of saw that in Singapore, right? Like it was basically the same concept, or I guess it actually is the same format, right? Like Singapore was actually the first DLC of Set 10, and you can kind of see the card accessibility thing where it seems like a lot of people are just playing the cards that they had, plus or minus like some of the new cards. Like I didn't see a lot of like Cindy's, for example. Like most people are just playing like, their Genie Dumbo base decks. And it was kind of apparent like Purple Steel was extremely popular during um that format. And it was like Blurple versus uh, Purple Steel in the finals. And Tiago made it with Purple Steel as well. So it's totally possible that this tournament will still be Purple Steel, even though it kind of had a poor conversion rate in Richmond. But because people have all these cards, and a lot of people honestly still deem it the best deck, right? Like a lot of people are playing the deck, and it has the most consistent game plan, as everyone kind of stated. So I still expect like a large kind of population of Amethyst Steel, probably even like, mid 20%. So if you have a good plan against that and a good plan against like green blue, you'll probably have a good deck. But the problem is like not a lot of decks are kind of good into both. I know a lot of people are playing like the new yellow purple with, just the mid range, right? Not the Zan, not the OTK version, but just like, the good yellow cards, right? A lot of the good yellow cards are really good into the format right now, right? Like Horseman Strikes, really good into like Prince Philip, Genie, Elsa, Iago, all these kind of evasive characters. And then you also have World's Greatest Criminal Mind. I think that card is really, really good right now. A lot of people are basing their decks off of like, Demona, Clarabelle, Prince Philip. So I think that card is quite a blowout. And especially since everyone's cutting not Genie, everyone's cutting 7-cost Hades because they're just like, oh, it gets stuck in my hand. And, even I'm considering cutting it, right? And I think that's actually quite important against the yellow purple deck, just because that's the only card that's can't be hit by Horseman Strikes or World's Greatest Criminal Mind. It actually sticks around, removes your opponent's threat, quest for 2, wins the game. I think yellow purple is probably going to be one of these like up and coming decks for Hong Kong.
Yeah, believe it or not, that's actually one of the decks I considered. I really liked its matchup against other purple decks because like a lot of like let's say against purple, a lot of purple players feel too hard into playing like Genie or Iago turn 3 or even better Dumbo turn 3, and if you just slap it with a Horseman Strike, like you feel like you've it's like you did a hypnotic on a Iago. It's one of the best things ever. I think one of the things that made me concerned about playing Purple Yellow was like the dogs matchup felt absolutely atrocious. But I think it's the same situation where dogs is such a scary deck to fight even as a purple player. So you feel like you have to prepare against it. And unlike purple, we don't really have any tech card in purple yellow for dogs. But then again, like it seems like every time people like overestimate dogs showing up in the tournament, it just turns out to be around like 10% at most. So yeah.
I was gonna say I think it's actually fine. Like I know Dave played against a lot of dogs during his run, and he beat all of them just with like the curve I described earlier. With like I think he's playing Royal Guard, I guess. But he plays like Royal Guard and then like Iago Stomping Mad, Cheshire Cat, Genie Elsa, Genie Elsa Demona, right? Like if you're able to do that curve out, and the dogs player like doesn't have an Under the Sea or Chromacron, you can basically like wipe their entire board, right? And I've seen it a couple times. So I think just Amethyst in general, just having those kind of challenger characters is probably enough to kind of slow down your dog's opponent.
All right, thank you for that. Um, Now, for you pros, do you feel that this current core constructed format is healthy? And how would you rank it compared to other set core formats that have been established throughout the years?
I'll kick it off. I quite like the current core constructed formats. It is very diverse. There's a lot of decks possible. There's a lot of intricate movements between decks because of the expectations that you have on metagame percentages. I'm not quite sure how to rank it against other formats, but I definitely quite like this one.
I also quite like it. I think it's a great format, lots of decks possible. It's only bad if you're a Ruby fan, because I mean, at least we know we had Ruby Amethyst this set, but like compared to like Fabled, where we had almost no good Ruby deck, but we have a huge improvement over Fabled. Fabled felt like you play Purple or you play Purple Steel or Green Blue, but now it seems like there's so many like possible choices that you could play. And yeah, so far I quite liked it. I do miss, the classics like Whole New World and Be Prep. I think those kind of changed the game quite significantly when you were around. Like I think as Ed pointed out, like the comeback potential was so much better pre-rotation. Now you have to like fight for board like every single turn. But nonetheless, I think I quite enjoyed this format, especially compared to like the previous like, Fabled format.
All right, thank you for that. Looks like DKP has come in. Um, are you here to share your experiences over the past couple weeks?
Yes, of course. So can you hear me now, or do I have to request talking in
You're
the
good. We
event?
can hear you.
Okay, cool. Yeah, so what event should I start talking? Richmond?
Yes, please.
Yeah.
Be great.
Okay. Yeah, Richmond. I got top 8 at Richmond, so really happy to get my 5th Mickey. So that was a great success. Rob got top 4, so also great success. Unfortunately, we both lost to Fungus, so no win for WCC. But I mean, we got 2 deep tops. That's already really good. And yeah, my experience. So I was really firm on Blurple before the event. I mean, it's not that obviously, right? Most people assume I want to do that because of the guide, but I really believed that Blurple was the deck to take there. If it's not Blurple, it was probably green blue because it's like just high rolling for the win. And it's not really always like high rolling. Sometimes you can just win with a mid hand. For me personally, I knew that something like dogs was not the pick. Like everybody tagged so hard for dogs. I tagged hard for dogs. Rod tagged with like another one drop, which is also pretty good just to have consistently a one drop. So it was like the weren't much picks, right? The top 4 decks were Blurple, Dogs, Green Blue, and Purple Steel. And I know Purple Steel was also not the pick because it's just like if you play against a competent Blurple player, you just get 2-0'd. And even though it's like the most popular deck, it's not like the same as Blurple in set 9. And Blurple in set 9 was just the most popular deck, but also probably the strongest and the most consistent deck. Whereas Purple Steel, like the moment you just don't draw strength, it's the deck just goes down, like down, especially into Blurple. And it has a really horrendous matchup against Green Blue. So it's like 2 things. Like 2 out of the top 4 decks are just not auto losers, but it's quite low. And yeah, dogs were also picked. So like in the end, it was really purple and green blue, but I played a ton of green blue, and I just don't want to get these games where I just stare at hand. I either knew I lost right then and there, or I stare at my hand. I'm like, maybe I have a shot, but then throughout the entire game, I just didn't do anything, which happened to my opponents. Like I played against 4 green blues total. I lost twice because I bricked once and then I got completely high rolled by Fungus. It was like simply who went first. Like we both had insane hands, but he went first in game 3, so he could pull it off earlier. And the other 2 wins, my opponent just did nothing. I 2-0'd both of them, I think, or 2-1 and 2-0, something like that. They just did nothing. They even had ramp, but they did nothing afterwards. Like one guy went ramp, Cindy, and they did nothing for like 3 turns back to back and just turned sideways. And then the other guy just went like Donald, gave me cards, and I just one-shot to Donald afterwards. And then, yeah, nothing really happened, never board wiped me, and that can just happen, so I try to avoid that. And overall, my run started really rough because I played against 4 green decks instead of purple decks, and was like, okay, if that just continues going on, then I might just lose. But then suddenly I just faced purple decks only. Even though I lost round 3 and 5, I was like, my tiebreak is now kind of bad because what happened to Zan and other people earlier, DLCs, I might not make it. I still tried my best. Also, I just didn't want to give up that early. And then I just saw that's something you can check. I saw that my tiebreak was kind of decent. I was like in the first third of the X2s. So I was like, wait, that can actually might be actually good enough. And then I just pulled through, won 7 times in a row from round 5 to round 12. Of course, it feels like overwhelming if you think about like you constantly think about I have to win 7 times still, and then maybe you win once, then you think about I have to still win 6 times, and then still 5 times, still 4 times. Like if you keep thinking like this, it will overwhelm you. So you can't do that. You can do it, of course, like before the round and in between the rounds. Sure, you can stress yourself a bit, but during the match, just play game for game. That's like always the best advice every pro will give you. Just play game for game, because like during the matches and the game itself, I don't even think about the score. I don't even think about like who's up one game, who's down one game. I just focus directly on that game, and if I win, then my brain resets again. Like, okay, wait, what game was that? Ah, game 2. So one more game or something like that. And quite often it was like 2-0. So I just won the first, won the second, and then even then, after I won the second, I had a brief moment where I was like, wait, do I have to play game 3? And I'm like, no. So I'm like so deep in that play game for game thing that sometimes I even forgot if I have to play a third game or not. So that's like a really good advice. Since I'm doing that, which I started quite late, I think I started doing that extremely after like the third or fourth DLC I played. I played much better. Like before, for example, in Yu-Gi-Oh! And in the first DLCs, I stressed myself so much. I kept thinking about this exact thought where I'm like, I have to win like 5 more times, 6 more times, whatever. And I'm on the bubble already. Oh no, and panic. But it doesn't help you. It only makes you weaker and stresses you out. Where to the point where you just overlook one small thing, and that's it. That's the entire tournament gone. Just overlooking something, especially something obvious, that will make you really mad, and it made me really mad. So at some point, I just adapted this kind of mindset. And yeah, I just don't want to lose an entire tournament to one overlook, which I unfortunately still did in my second DLC now in Suzhou in China. I didn't took a B prep from Tala. I took a Hades. I don't know why I did that. And then I gave my opponent like 5 free lore because I didn't board wipe, but I did the Hades. So I lost because of that in the end. Haven't played the format in a while, and I was like, yeah, I go Shark into Hades. That should be fine, right? But no, it's not fine. Against Purple Steel, that just plays multiple Smees out and then just turns sideways. Even with Shark, they just ignore it. Like that player specifically was good enough to just see that they can just quest into the Shark instead of waiting. So yeah, that cost me the game. And like I was in top 16, right? So it was costed me top 8, and then potentially a top 4 for Mickey, and potentially the words to get. You never know, but it cost me the chance, the opportunity to get there. So that was like bad, but not. It wasn't really because I was stressed out or something. I just felt way too overconfident. I thought I knew the format, but I haven't played it in 6 months, and got like severely punished for not prepping accordingly for that specific DLC. But for Hong Kong, I mean, there I probably have more reps, and fortunate enough, it is still the same same format, right? And nothing really changed. I mean, I looked at some deck lists and I tried to find like to see if like people did some meta shifts or something, but probably not. I mean, it is also best of 1, so that's something yeah, that people should have in mind, right? Like best of 1 just means that some decks are even worse, because if you play them on the draw, it's probably even worse. So you need to play decks that are also really good on the draw, and I think something like Dogs is completely bad on the draw into many decks. So that's definitely not a pick for me. And I'm probably sticking to Global. It's not a secret. And yeah, even missing Ram is quite fine, because if you draw into Cat, you can, or like enough 1-drops, you can fight off a lot of things and ramp later. So yeah, these are my DLC experiences, what I learned from them, and what I plan to do for Hong Kong.
All right, thank you for that. We're gonna kick it over to the Metafy subscribers. We're gonna see if there's any user submitted questions that you guys can answer. So if there's anybody in the Metafy chat, feel free to ask now. So Shark asked, who is your favorite testing partner going into DLCs?
Well, for me, that
Lorcanito.
would have to be Lorcanito. Yeah, sure. For me, that would have to be Frank Karsten. Usually, my testing consists out of a lot of browser games, and then like 2 or 3 nights, Frank just comes over, and that's so valuable.
I actually don't even test that much. If I think about it, hmm, probably was like Tiago.
All right. Salty Gator asks,
It's
testing for Continentals different than testing for DLCs?
Yeah, I think it's a little different. That's also mostly because of the timing of the tournament, I believe. Because I think Continentals are both very close after the rotation, while a DSC is usually quite a known format already. I don't think there's anything too spicy going on in the last few DLCs, but there's definitely going to be spicy stuff and new and undiscovered stuff for Continentals.
Yeah, so like last Continentals and this Continentals are basically always new formats. So for example, for last Continentals, that was like the release of set 6 and like quite after, but the thing is there were no tournaments, so zero data on that. So everybody was like going blind into it. Nobody had a clue before Friday what everyone was playing. Like for the EU Continentals, we actually knew what was going on because we just went around on Friday and a ton of French players played Red Blue, and some also played like weird versions of Red Blue. And I already had my Red Blue like Shark, but it was like really bad version. I still play Tamato, like the 8-cost Tamato and stuff. So it was like everybody was really experimenting, and then the second Continentals there was the point where everybody had really refined decks. Then you also saw like Ed running his red purple right to counter the red blues or from the European Continentals. I had a much better um, red blue shark. I unfortunately just misplayed with the deck because I still haven't mastered it. And yeah, you saw like a ton of like really refined decks, and really a lot of people tried to counter red blue, but it still ended up on like 30% like win rate, not win rate, but attendance. And yeah, now if it's true that the rotation is gonna hit 4 Continentals, that would be like crazy, right? Then testing for that really is everybody needs to sit down and cook and just cook something up, and we probably won't have information for that either. So the first Continental will be just like who has the best testing circle, can cook the most consistent decks, and yeah, we have to see.
It's actually been confirmed, so yeah, it's going to be a new format.
It's confirmed after. Okay, damn it. Yeah, that would be hardcore then. Continentals will be really, really, really hard because we cannot really do the usual formula anymore, right? Like Blurple, it's going ramp, 4-drop Ursa. Like this took away so much of like deck building when you just focus on Blurple, for example, right? Like new sets comes out, set 11. Okay, you just choose some cards that you might want to add for the Blurple. Like the Alien cards are cool, like Techie, you can play them as one-off, maybe as two-off, probably only one-off. But then, like if you don't draw them in the right moment, they're kind of bricky. So that's the thing if you want to play it. For example, the Taran, the 5-drop Rush. That's only really good if there's a lot of Lilos or like discard disruption is needed, right? Where you can just use the second effect quite often. But the Rush effect is okay. Then what I like, for example, is the Tigger, the 4-drop, because he's inkable and just bounce back a 2-drop, which is a ton of tempo if you play it out on turn 3, right? So, and the body is still strong, and so afterwards the Tigger can contest everything. So that means you did the tempo move, bounce something, you can trade. Afterwards you can go into Elsa plus Basil, take something out, or like Elsa plus any 1-drop takes something out again. Like on the draw is like huge tempo swing. On the play even more, right? Like imagine your opponent goes 1-drop, 2-drop, let's say Purple Steel. You go like the ramp, then Tigger, bounce back the Calhoun, now the ball is a 1-drop. Now they can go 3-drop, and then you go Elsa, exert the 3-drop, Tigger takes it out. Like you got instantly the board and you probably won. So that's kind of cool. Yeah, but for Continentals, then you're just sitting there. You have no clue, right? We have zero clue. We're just sitting there and play play against some decks for the first time ever, maybe. And then you have to have like really great skills in adapting and fundamentals and stuff like that.
Speaking on that, we have another question by Georgion1. Do you think the game is improving for limited format? What would you like to see for limited in the future? And any tips for getting better at card evaluation?
I think the game, like the cards that we are getting, are getting more and more interesting for the limited, in my opinion. So the designers now, it feels like they are just developing more interesting effects and also giving us in general better stats. So now you can just have somewhat powerful limited decks and then also have like more decisions when you're picking your card pool. So I really enjoyed this kind of design. Especially something like, for example, Moana is kind of cool also. I mean, it's not a great 5-drop, but like just giving you like free ink like that, so you can just not ram, but get into your like 7-drops, which there are plenty, or like higher drops, whatever, is kind of cool for free like that in sealed, especially like any kind of, that's like big card events, right? And every kind of card event is good. In general, card evaluation for limited, I would say. So I learned everything from Frank for Words, right? And he just teach me, you need, depending on what size of deck you need like this amount of 1-drops, 2-drops, 3-drop, 4-drops. You pick every single 5-drop, 6-drop, 7-drop, 8-drop, like no, 5, 6 at least. Every single one that's inkable and decent, or maybe also uninkable, but at least it must be like somewhat decent. 7-drop is sometimes okay. 8-drop's probably too late. And 7-drop is like only if it's inkable, probably. And he just told me that. I'm like, okay, I just did exactly that for for the World Sealed event. And quite often, I would say you are kind of locked into this like 80% of the time. Like you still can skill gap offers people with like better evaluation, but I would say like most time you are locked into this kind of framework either way. And yeah, you need to find your curve. You cannot only pick good cards, right? You unfortunately still need to go for the curve. If it's draft, of course. I'm not really an expert in draft, so I cannot say much about that. But in sealed, usually you don't get enough cards to even make a decision on what bombs you're picking. You literally just pick every single bomb, put it in your deck, and then you put every single good 3-drop in your deck and kick the bad ones out, and you will end up on like the required amount, and so on and so on. Like quite often it happens like that, and you don't have your choice because you quite often don't even get to the required amount, and just put every single one in.
I think for me, for sealed, I think that my main takeaway was that 1-drops were quite bad. So when I was playing, I literally just put 0 1-drops. You play all the decent 2-drops, and like obviously, like you said, you put all the good 5+ cards. And I think the reason why that works out is like if you think about it, right? Like you're on the play, there's basically no card draw in limited. It's very sparse. So if you're inking and playing something on turn 1, you can only do that until you have 6 ink, right? Or like a 6 ink play, and that's it. But if you're on the play and you skip your first turn, you can go 2 through 7. So I think that's why like the 7-cost cards are so strong. And then when you're on the draw, I think that's like the only time, like let's say I remember at Worlds, it's the only time I would consider siding in 1-drops if my opponent is doing something aggressive, because then you can go 1 through 7 on the draw and still kind of keep parity with your opponent, because most of the time they're not playing a 1, or else they fall too behind on card economy. So I think the way that Lorcana Sealed kind of works is, um, if you're just playing like a regular format, I guess no side decking, I would still say in general, just don't play any 1 cost and just play all the decent like 2+ cards and play all your expensive cards. And I think another kind of good tip is if you're playing like uninkables, most of the time you don't really want to play more than 1 uninkable in a certain slot, because if you draw 2 uninkables of a certain slot, like let's say for example you play 2 4 costs that are uninkable, if you draw both, then it kind of hinders like your future plays and you're kind of playing a weaker card. So when I kind of look at my curve, most of the time I just play like the best uninkable per slot. So, and I think that usually starts at maybe like 4. So like I'll play like 1 uninkable 4, 1 uninkable 5, 1 uninkable 6, and 1 uninkable 7. And usually those cards are really, really strong, right? So I would just say you pick your 1, and then most of the rest of your deck is basically inkable.
Yeah. Didn't you play 2 or 3 1-drops in your main deck in the worst?
Yeah, but I literally sided them out every single game. I was like, they're so bad. I thought I was being cute because I think I had like some synergy thing with uh like the what's that called, the pirate thing that does one deck, Kakamura. I was trying to like
Yeah.
Kakamura people and dump truck or whatever. And I think that's like probably okay like on the draw, but on the play is actually quite bad. Looking back, I definitely would not have done that. And like, yeah, I did register them in my main, but I literally side decked them out every single game. So yeah, if looking back, like if you're playing sealed, I would just say don't play any of the 1-drops and just go for a value game plan.
Yeah, you should
Yeah.
have joined World Class Cards earlier, so you would have known.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Just wanting to add to Ed's point on like power versus synergy. Like when you're evaluating cards for synergy, like you have to ask, is it worth it to play like bad cards just to make this card work? Like I remember like Aerial Sonic Warrior was like a sick card, like limited. Like if you get songs to pop off, you like can destroy your opponent's board. But like if you're playing like really, really bad and situational songs just to make Sonic Warrior work, then maybe it's not worth it. So sometimes like when in doubt, like if you just go for raw power on your card over like, diluting your deck with things that could possibly like pop off, but like if you like draw the other components without that part card and like it's really bad, then it's not worthwhile.
I think Spessy had a
Yeah.
video that he came up with like a couple days ago about that. Basically, the summary is like all the synergy cards payoffs are just bad in this game. So it's probably not worth it if you can just play independently good cards, right? Like, Genie, Elsa, Cheshire Cat, like those cards are just like insane on their own, like tons of value, right? So I would say most of the time you just want to be able to play these type of value cards if possible and just try to ignore the synergies if you can.
Okay. I also have to go, so have fun, guys. See ya.
All right. Thank you for stopping in, DKP. So we can answer just a couple more questions here. Lorcana BCB asked, so detectives are not good enough in green blue?
I mean, I did try it, and I think the problem is like there's just too many slots in your deck that just don't do anything. Like if you compare like regular green blue to detectives, basically you are taking out stuff like develop and what else are you taking out? I guess you're not playing Hades anyway, but you're playing like the basil package, right? And sometimes you want that one cost basil to just be a develop and you can like dig towards your combo. I would say how I evaluate detectives is like usually it's more of a mid-roll deck. Like it's pretty consistent. You have like the Judy Hopps thing. You can kind of dig through your deck to get the cards, but like the power plays are just like a lot worse in my opinion. So I think the problem with detectives is it just takes up a lot of card space, and like those card could have just been more consistency cards.
I do think the deck still has legs. It's just that yeah, don't dilute your deck playing like extra detectives just for the sake of hitting more consistently with Judy Hopps. Like I had a buddy who like jammed like that detective genie into the deck, and I was like, no, you could play like so much other cool cards in green blue over like playing that one. So I do think detectives could have some weight. It's just that yeah, you have to just not cut like cards like develop, which are like very good in the deck, just for like a chance to like have a slightly better Judy Hopps.
All right. So if that is all the questions, we are going to be calling it a day. Thank you all for joining in on the latest episode of the World Class Cards Procast. For any of the subscribers, make sure you guys stick around after. We'll be doing some giveaways.